in Mauritius. Thank you for your kind attention. Now we'll hear our friends sharing their experience with us. I leave the floor to the director. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Without much ado, I think I'm going to invite Manish. The floor is yours now. And Manish is going to present to us what he has prepared for us. So let's hope we can press out. Better to walk a bit. Well, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you. First of all, allow me to congratulate the HRDC for its 10 years of existence. And I must say it's good to see 10 years of existence, and where it has certainly helped to develop the human resources field and the human resources development perspective in Mauritius. So, and I would like also to commend the HRDC for this first initiative in Mauritius, that is the Let's Talk About HR initiative, which is, in my view, a very good forum for sharing. It's something which we don't have enough in Mauritius, and a lot of us as people, we tend to go outside to look for conferences, to look for sharing and best practices, where we can have it all in Mauritius. A lot of it is practiced in Mauritius, be it through multinationals present. I see quite a few people from those sectors. I see a colleague of mine, Kishan from Accenture, Ben Oyen from Aon Hewitt, as well as you have a lot of Mauritian companies who have not hesitated to invest in best practices, such as the HRDC, the MRA, sorry. So I'm going to talk today about employee engagement. Employee engagement, which in my view I call it the new productivity. We tend to believe that productivity is about work. So it's, as we all must have studied at university, productivity is what is your level of output over level of input. So the first question which comes to mind when we talk about people at work in the field of human resources is, what motivates people at work? Just cancel that for you, or else we can join your Facebook account. So, what motivates people at work? First of all, a lot of us, when we study, be it at secondary level or else at undergrad or postgrad level, we start by learning what motivates people in general. What motivates people, and most of you must have come across Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yes? Yeah, I see some notes. And then you go from there, you go into what motivates people at work now. So it's always interesting to find, and one of the theories that I personally like is the motivation hygiene theory by Frederick Herzberg. It was developed in 1960s. So, but it's still very much valid. And the way I kind of like to conceptualize it is very simple. For those who've done maths, you might recall this. A y-axis with plus and negative. And you have a theoretical line of 0. So if we were to apply it to motivation of someone, of an individual, you would say this level is a theoretical line where a person is neither motivated nor demotivated. And as you apply certain factors at work, what we call hygiene factors, or factors which are extrinsic to the workplace, these factors help to reduce the level of demotivation or dissatisfaction of someone to a theoretical 0 level. But it will not create motivation at work. What instead would create motivation would be another set of factors, what you call intrinsic factors, or in itself motivators or satisfiers. It's also known as the theory of satisfiers, dissatisfiers. Yeah. I'm bringing you back a bit to lectures and it starts to get boring, so I'll jump to that now. So what motivates people at work? When we take these two sets of factors, hygiene factors, you can identify quite a few elements to it. Your hygiene factors, I'll read it out for you for those who can't see at the back. You have remuneration, your benefits. You have, now you call it your total rewards. Work conditions, whatever conditions of work you have. Job security, relationship with your supervisor, relationship with peers, colleagues, as well as your values and policies in the organization. We call it hygiene factors or extrinsic factors because it's around the job. It doesn't talk about the content of the job itself, which we come to now, which is the motivation factors. That is, whatever you deal with intrinsically with the job on a daily basis. So factors which really motivate people at work are a sense of achievement, having interesting and challenging work, personal and professional growth, career progression, employee empowerment, to what extent you are empowered at work, you are given flexibility and authority. And finally, recognition from be it public or private recognition at work. So, but then again, what motivates people at work? We all work for organizations, and organizations all have a certain objective. Some are profit-making, some are non-profit-making, some have a service to society. But at the end of the day, the challenge of motivating people for organizations is finding a delicate balance. It's like a balancing act of balancing between motivating people and between productivity. For an employer, the productivity is about getting results at the end of the day. That's where organizations exist for. And unfortunately, or fortunately, but I would say more unfortunately, for the past 3-4 years, we've had a lot of pressure, stress, due to the financial crisis and economic situation in the world, which has also impacted on our country, where we have more and more a challenge of doing more with less. Less resources available, people leave, you don't recruit, but you have to revisit, reinvent yourself, think out of the box, and find ways to do more with less. So that's a bit about the productivity, which is focused towards developing a performance culture. It applies at organizational level, it applies at country level as well, as we no longer have, comment on dit, un filet de protection, like we used to have in the past, where we operate on a global market now. Our competitors are global, it's not even local, so we are competing against the likes of China, Singapore, and so on, and India. As compared to the other side of how to motivate people is to provide a certain purpose. That why do you get out of bed to go to work? And don't tell me it's because of your alarm. It's more about finding meaningful work to do. You want to get out of bed and go to work and stay at work because there's meaningful work. I recall one of my colleagues who used to joke about certain cultures in the past where people used to say, well, you expect me to be here from 9 to 4, so don't expect me to work as well. So, well, that was a joke, but... and also about providing an interesting work-life balance. We all have our families, we all have to look after our own health, because work makes Jack a dull boy, if not a sick boy. So, it applies for the ladies as well. So, and also at the end of the day, attractive rewards. Rewards which would entice people to retain people in your organization. Why should I be working with you and not with someone else? So, coming back to this framework of motivation comes the concept of engagement. That's where I introduce engagement. Engagement is deeper. For me, engagement is deeper than motivation. Motivation is a set of factors which gives someone a certain motive, a certain drive, a certain interest to do something. But engagement is deeper and more impactful in the sense that engagement moves from motivation into behavior, into action. Okay? So let me share more about engagement. Engagement is defined as the state of intellectual and emotional involvement or commitment of someone. This is the Aon Hewitt model, so that's why I'm sharing it, the logo you can see there. So it's copyrighted. I can't copy and paste, or else I'll be sued. So engaged employees are productive, innovative, and take ownership for results. So we've moved from typical motivation towards engagement, where people who are engaged are innovative, they take ownership, they take initiatives, and thereby helping organizations to create a competitive advantage for their organization. So, and people who are engaged exhibit normally 3 types of behaviors, and that's something that we normally measure. The behaviors are say, stay, and strive. So it's pretty simple. It's very simple to get. You get an engagement, you get an engagement score. Then you have 3 behaviors. Say is to what extent people say positive things about the organization. So the level of say. Stay is to what extent people want to strongly continue working for the organization. And finally, the level of strive is to what extent people go above and beyond. That is, they go the extra mile to do their best at work. Yeah. So it's pretty simple so far. Let me complicate it a bit more now, or complexify it. So we have engagement is just not about behaviors. So what impacts on those behaviors are a set of factors and sub-factors. You have 6 core factors, which are as follows: core factors and drivers. So you have people, work and motivation at work, opportunities, quality of life and balance, values, procedures, as well as rewards. So these factors make up or impact on engagement, make up an interesting engagement model. If you look at it, it's very holistic because it firstly goes beyond just simple motivation, and it cuts across a lot of different functions and aspects of employers and of employment. So people, you have senior leadership, what kind of leaders you have and what kind of vision they have, how do they communicate, how do they lead people. The middle management, how do they manage people, what kind of results they bring. Managers or supervisors, as well as relationship between co-workers. Okay. Then you have work motivation, which is your intrinsic motivation at work, the nature of the job that people do, how these jobs have been defined, have been evaluated. Resources provided provided at the disposition of the individuals, work tasks that they do also. Then you have opportunities, under which you have career opportunities, opportunities for growth and progression, and finally also learning and development. So training, coaching, as well as other learning opportunities. So what you call blended learning approach. Quality of life in itself is self-explanatory. So having a balanced work life where you have flexibility at work, you have other facilities which help you to manage your work stress and workload. Physical work environment, organizational reputation, or in that sense we call it a bit the employer branding part. Employee health and well-being, the health and safety aspect, the ergonomics aspect falls under here. And finally, corporate social responsibility. So how do organizations which operate in a certain society, in a certain context, how do they give back to society? Because we all, as organizations, we consume resources in the societies we live, and how much of it do we give back to society? Procedures would be people and HR practices, your HR function in itself. So it's a way to measure the effectiveness of the HR function, to what extent it is providing value, adding value to the organization. And here, people rate it, people give a level of satisfaction on the HR function itself. Managing performance of people, and finally work processes. And rewards in itself, it's what we call total reward system, where you look at the pay, that is the remuneration you take home, the monetary aspect, as well as the non-monetary aspect, which includes different benefits such as pension, medical scheme, and so on, retirement, savings, and the non-monetary aspect also of recognition. So these factors create a certain environment which lead to behaviors of people. It leads to these 3 behaviors that I just mentioned, say, stay, and strive, which in turn creates engagement. And through this model, you can evaluate, you can measure these different aspects of work, employment, measure the level of behaviors of people in that sense, and have an overall engagement score. So engagement is a key part of our business. That's something I wanted to share, what has been our journey with Rogers. We introduced engagement 7 years ago. We decided to move for the Aon Hewitt engagement model, which we find very interesting and it's in fact very holistic and useful, very practical. So I'd like to thank Bernard for being present here. So he represents Aon Hewitt. If you're interested, you can contact him for it. So you have the engagement survey has been carried out for the past 7 years. We rolled it out for managers mainly, management population, around 250 managers initially. And we upgraded it. In fact, the philosophy that we did was we adapt and improve. We used it, customized it to our needs, and extended it to all employees since 2011. And we do it every 2 years, because measuring engagement of 3,000 people, it's a hell of a job. So it's not only about measuring the engagement. You get the report, it's very interesting, but more importantly is what do you do about the report? What do you do with it? It's just good to show results and so on, but you have to work on it. So that's where we take the results, we carry out focus groups in the different sectors that we have, where joint action plans are worked out per department, per company, per sector, with the employees, with the managers, so that what are the aspects of work that we can normally improve on? What is good, what we need to continue doing, but also what is an area for improvement and what we can do about it and how we can improve it. So it is a very holistic approach, and that's why we decided to choose the Aon Hewitt model. And I believe it's one of the few present in the world where you can also benchmark internationally with it. Every year they come up with the employee engagement survey globally, across countries, across continents, across industries. So it's pretty interesting, and you get the opportunity to benchmark yourself. It's not just internally that you have results, you know where you are, but it also helps you to benchmark industry-wise, it helps you to benchmark globally or even regionally. So I'll show you now the practical part, a sample engagement report, how it looks like. Because I've talked about the theory, how it's applied and how it works. Let me share with you a few slides, so it will take around 5 to 10 more minutes, and then I'll take questions. So the sample engagement report looks a bit like this. First, you have an engagement score. A score. But what does a score mean? A score is, you have a range, of course, from 0 to 100. And if you have an engagement score of 0 to 30, it's called a destructive zone. You're in a destructive zone. If you're working for that company, well, you know what you have to do. I'm not going to hint, but it's if you're still there, you're close to depression, or it's time to move on. But it's very, very important to know where you are. Critical is you have to take action. There are things which are not working and seriously not working, and you have to seriously think about improving, because people are really not motivated or engaged, let's say. Then you have from 45 to 65%, it's called the indifferent zone. People come to work because it's work. You know, they come here for a paycheck and then that's it. There's no additional meaning to it. You see, so they don't come to work because, for example, they're here to make a difference to the world. They're here to make a difference to their country. And that's where the high performance zone happens. It's from 65% onwards. You call that high performance organizations. Really, the top employers of the world fall in those categories, 65% onwards. So the challenge is, your target is to be in this zone. When you're in this zone, everything happens. You're in a state of flow as an organization, because it brings results, people are motivated, people stay on, you have a high retention rate, and so on and so forth. So what I'm showing here is the engagement scores globally of the Aon Hewitt report of 2012. Europe has an engagement score of 52%. And it's a bit contextual also because of the economic crisis in Europe at the moment. Globally, we are at 57%. Asia Pacific is at 71%, and what I didn't add here, because there should have been too many arrows on it, is Latin America is around 70% again, and the African region, which they started recently, is at 68%. So it's almost there. You see, it's also related to what kind of market you're operating in. So emerging markets are doing pretty well because companies are growing, but still there's room for improvement because these countries are still having to cut costs, to review the way they operate, and they're not firing people. But still, it gives you an idea where you are as an organization. So where are we on the scale? So for example, this is when we share the result, we share also where we are compared to global organizations. For example, one company was at 70%. That is 148 managers or 148 respondents, people are engaged out of 211. So we also go into the details of it. So as I showed, the different zones, we use color coding, traffic lights, green, amber, and red. So it's very visual and very easy to understand. Green means 70% are engaged, but what about the 30%, the remaining? 3%, 1% is disengaged, so it's completely either destructive or in a critical zone. And 27% are not engaged, that is, they're in the middle, what we call sitting on the fence, they're indifferent. And that's where we also have to work on, because there's something which is not working, and that's where we drill down to see what are the things that we need to improve on. We also measure it over time, how we have progressed, how we have changed, and how things have evolved. So it gives us some idea when we set down our objectives for the year, what kind of engagement score we would like to achieve per company, per sector, and so on. We also now, as we go from the engagement score, we go into the different behaviors. So we have comparisons per year, 2011, 2012. So in green, the lower chart is 2012. 2011 is in blue. So the engagement scores, the C, level of stay, and level of strive. So we can see, for example, here, C has gone down, stay has gone up, and strive has gone down. So it gives us some meaning. What does it mean? It means people are staying more, they're having to work more, but they're not very motivated to go the extra mile. And also, they are saying less positive things about the organization. Maybe because the company has embarked on a cost-cutting initiative. So it's not a great place to work when you're having to cut costs everywhere. We also benchmark it globally with a global best employers. So the idea here, you can benchmark, in blue is the company again, and in red is the global benchmark of the best employer. Remember, the global score was around 58%. So where are we? Oh, 65% for a best employer globally at that moment in time. So where are we compared to best employers in terms of safety and strive and the score? Where are we compared to the global average? Because it's good to have an idea of best employers, but also where are we compared to globally the average score? Yeah. You go also, if you have different companies, different departments, you can drill down further on from there into what kinds of scores you have in the different sectors and how it has evolved over time. You have one which is 100%. Wow, it's good. Implications, again, with color coding, where they are, who are the organizations who are in the green, who are in the amber, and if it's in the red, then we have to seriously do something. Very seriously do something. Again, by sector, with evolution and color coding and so on. So once that's the big picture. Now you start to go into the details of the various factors. So that's a bit the web chart. So here you have your different factors. Remember, there's 6 core drivers and 21 factors. I'm showing part of it. You can choose whatever factors you want to use It's not that you have to use all of them. So what are the scores at each level? So for example, pay is at 38%, whereas some others, motivation at 74%, CSO and so on. It's a picture to point in time. But then the idea is to benchmark again. Where is the global best employer? So what can we aspire towards? Of course, it's impossible to have 100% everywhere. So realistically, if we are doing very well, we put every resources as a strategy to improve our engagement of people, where we can aspire to be in the red. So then it gives you an idea of priorities, what you can focus on to improve. Comparison with global average. So where we are compared to the global average. So it gives you certain comfort that certain things you're doing well, if not better, than many companies globally. And where still you can do even better. Now, it's a report which can go very much in details, as I said. So you have the different factors with in green the scores, engagement scores, and then you find out where are the levels of dissatisfaction, if not disengagement. So, for example, 80% are indifferent to pay, not very happy with it, or it's not something which really motivates them. Well, of course, one thing, I can already answer that question. A lot of people will say, well, normally pay is always something which people are not happy about. Yes, because the general happy level of satisfaction with your salary, when you get a salary increase, is just 3 months. After 3 months, you look for the next, because your lifestyle, your work, let's say your expenses are readjusted to it. For example, we just had the PRB report. 3 months down the line, everyone is, okay, it's already part of living, now we're looking forward to the next PRB, isn't it? So, additional analysis can be done more in depth, and that's where you can do cross-functional analysis, and you can match with different aspects. For example, you can match your engagement with level of profitability, match your engagement with customer satisfaction. This is very interesting, because you can map your level of internal customer satisfaction and match it with your external customer satisfaction. And you see there's always a direct link. So, as well as you go down into the details of engagement by category, by employer, by gender, by length of service, by department, age group, and so on. So, this is an interesting finding that we had for engagement scores. Engagement scores and profitability are directly linked. There's a direct correlation between results of your organization and the engagement of your people. You'll see the curves. In blue, first is the PAT level of an organization in our group. I can't say which one. And the engagement score in this one here, you'll see it went up. The profit reached a certain level, highest level when it was in the high performance zone. And it started to dip. 1 year before it started to dip, and the profitability went down by more than 100%. In fact, by 50%, I would say. And we realized it, and we started to work on it again. And this year they are moving up. They'll be more than, let's say, they will be in this range around here. So it is an indication. It tells you it's a precursor of results that will affect your organization, that your organization will have. What I was mentioning, engagement by length of service. So the details you can go into when you're sharing results with your HR people and so on. I'm not going to go to explain the slides. And finally, we've had a lot of charts and statistics, nice to see. But what do we do about it? What are the priorities that we have then in light of those? So it also helps you to identify top factors as priorities. So here in orange or amber is what factors to focus on to improve engagement, what people would like to see more of, career opportunities, recognition, pay and benefits, and more people and HR practitioners which are people-friendly, user-friendly, or which answer to certain questions that they have, aspirations. And on this side is what are the key engagement sustenance drivers? That is, what are we doing well and what do we have to keep doing? what we have to maintain and sustain. This is an interesting indicator also, because it also tells you what are the things we're doing well and what we can celebrate on and build on. So you can only lead on your strengths. So voila. So in a nutshell, engagement, I would say, fosters the right behavior in your organization by focusing on the right set of factors. You will have seen it's very holistic. It looks at a lot of different factors in the organization, from communication, leadership, motivation, training, rewards, and so on. It is more powerful and impactful than just simple employee satisfaction or motivation. And one of the key things you have to do is include this as part of your organization strategy. In your strategic objectives, engagement has to be a key objective that all managers, all heads of department have to share as a KPI, as an objective. When this is done, it leads to fantastic results for your organization through your people. Because at the end of the day, engagement promotes a certain culture, a culture of we work hard and we play hard. Well, thank you. If you have any other questions, please feel free to shoot. Questions? Yes? Oui.
I'd like to know whether your engagement theory has replaced the typical traditional performance appraisal systems that you have.
No, it hasn't replaced it. It is complementary to it. In fact, your engagement model gets inbuilt in your performance appraisal, performance review, performance management system. As I mentioned, for example, Rogers, we use balanced scorecards as a performance management system, and people have engagement as a key measure in it, and a measure with the objective to it on a yearly basis. So where we are now and what is the objective for next year. So it is complementary to it because it feeds into your engagement, it feeds into your performance management system. For example, HR managers in the group have an objective of what HR score to have through the engagement score. Yeah? Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Yes.
I would like to know, among engaged employees that you have, if you have any report about the percentage of employee turnover in that category.
Let's say for Rogers as a group, it's a bit difficult to generalize because we have different sectors and different sectors have different realities. For example, hotels have a different level of turnover as compared to a sector like aviation. Normally, where sectors where we have engaged people, we have very little turnover, very little unwanted turnover, I would say. Okay, people do not really leave because they are happy where they are working. There's meaning to their work, and let's say one of the main reasons why in organizations people leave is not because of the pay. The pay is one factor, which is not normally the first factor. The first factor is people leave organizations because of people, mainly because of the boss. So the leadership score there helps us, gives us a very good indication of what kind of a leader is leading that organization. And if we have a low leadership score, it is an indication that we might be having problems with retention as well. So to answer your question, we have a very low engagement, very low turnover of engaged employees per sector, very low unwanted employee turnover. Because when we focus on managers also, we haven't had many people who have left unwanted.
Thank you very much. So just one observation. It's all about the chart of the table that you showed to us, and you said that the engagement of people is linked to one of the factors, the profitability of the organization, the PAT. So I was just thinking that when organizations are doing less well, which may not be necessarily because that the people are not working as smart as they should be, but because of other factors and considerations. So this is where I feel that because you were saying that in your group, you measure the engagement of the senior managers. So taking that as the example, I was thinking that probably this is where the people should be doing something more. They should be inputting more of their efforts and resources. And their engagement level should have gone higher, right? Because I'm coming after a few minutes to talk to you about the MR example. And I was thinking that, is it not a paradox that when the situation is tough or rough outside, the people's engagement goes down? Thank you. If you could respond to that.
It is not a paradox because, of course, we don't live in a vacuum. When the going gets tough, people are bound to be impacted by it. So the idea is, when the going gets tough, we do see engagement go down. But the idea is, how do you manage it, preempt it in a proactive manner? That is, the engagement doesn't drop down. Your profitability doesn't drop down. You will have a decrease in your results. But if you have the right set of factors you've been applying, you've been using. Let me share with you the examples that we have in Rogers. We've had the financial crisis, but we haven't had to close down companies. We haven't had to really retrench people. This in itself says a lot of things, because when we were in 2007, we were at the peak of engagement before the financial crisis hit. Of course, the financial crisis, when it hit, the engagement went down a bit also, but it didn't go down into the red. It went into around 60% also. We did whatever was required to maintain the level, because we know it's going to be very difficult to improve it. But what helped us also was, when people are engaged, they will go the extra mile to make sure whatever strategy we've adopted to survive, it will happen. We took very courageous decisions to slash costs. We reduced our training budgets. We had to freeze salary increases, and people accepted it easier than we would have expected. And that's one of the results that we say are positively surprised, but we're happy to have embarked on that journey.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for this brilliant expose. And I just want to my first question, is there a correlation between employee engagement, the branding and talent management? Branding and talent management.
So you had two questions. Okay, let me answer the second one first. When I shared the overall explanation of engagement, it's the level of employee involvement and commitment. So it is more than motivation, it is more than commitment. It is from commitment to behavior, because you have different kinds of commitment. You have behavioral commitment, you have attitudinal commitment. Attitudinal commitment is, okay, we are happy about it, right? But then behavioral commitment is one step forward, is we are happy about it and we embark into a positive behavior, a resourceful behavior, okay? So it is attitudinal plus behavioral commitment, if I may answer it like that, okay? The second one, is there, if you can repeat, is there correlation? Okay. Employee engagement, as I shared, is a holistic approach to really managing human resources in a very proactive manner. So you would have seen there was also certain elements of employer reputation, organizational reputation. If you're talking about branding, you're talking about employer branding or customer branding? Yes, yeah. So becoming an employer of choice, you have the organizational reputation in it, because it gives you an idea of internally how people assess their organization as an employer of choice. How many people would like to, are still working here, or to what extent you consider the organization to be at par with the best employers, also at par with or better than certain employers. Because it also gives you a certain comparison or benchmark with the global best employers. Okay, so the branding part is related to it, it's embedded in it. And then the talent management part is also included, in the sense that you have the opportunities part in it. So learning and development, career opportunities are part and parcel of the engagement measurement. And talent management, as you know, when you apply talent management, is about identifying your high potentials, so you're measuring performance versus potential, if you go for that model of talent management. So it helps you, first of all, to understand your whole organization, and then you can zoom down for talent management. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very nice expose. Thank you for the expose. Now, I'm thinking of the public sector. You're from the private sector. Well, there are so many factors which come into play in the public sector, which are very often absent in the private sector. Your model, how does it take into consideration external factors? I give an example. There is perhaps one element which is I don't find in the model is the ethical behavior. I don't know whether it's implicit in the ethical behavior of the employees, but also how do you take into consideration the external factors which are very often beyond the control of the employee.
Maybe I'll just make one clarification. It's not my model, it's Aon Hewitt's model. So, let's say private sector, public sector, yes, there are differences. I fully agree with you on that. The thing is, this is a model which is, my understanding, having worked with for the past 7 years, is very flexible. You can choose whatever you want to measure and apply for the engagement questionnaire. So one element is ethics, as you said. Ethics is not explicitly shown in it because ethics is a given. If you don't have ethical practice in the organization or ethical employees in the organization, the employees shouldn't be in the organization. Okay, and one other element is one way you can implicitly understand how it works also is the social responsibility part, where under corporate social responsibility, if you use the UN model for defining social responsibility, there's one part of corporate social responsibility which is about corporate governance. That also employees rate on it when you have the questionnaire. But of course, it's just one question. And let's not forget, it's a perception. Everyone, when he rates it, he will rate himself as very ethical. So engagement doesn't measure your level of ethics because, first of all, it has to be a given. It is a prerequisite in an organization. And it's not the best tool for you to measure ethics. Ethics has to be measured in terms of facts and figures. So this is a more perception survey. So a perception of ethics, well, as we say, perception is reality. My perception is my reality. Your perception is your reality. So it's not easy to come and put that on such a model.